Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a really cool knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Remette Wild Species knife, which is, I don't know about you, but I think this is a super clean look, and there is a lot to be excited about here, a lot to love. Also, I think that, those of you looking at this are thinking, okay, so it's titanium and M390, which it is. That's going to be expensive. They also make a budget version of this knife that comes in right around 55, 56, 57. I'll link every version of this knife down in the description so you guys can check it out. Spoiler alert, this is a really good knife. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks so much to Remette for sending this in for me to take a look at. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Just trying to get through specs fairly quickly here. Overall length, the Wild Species coming in at not even 8 inches. It really, like, if that's your line, it feels like an 8-inch plus knife. It just has that full-size feel to it. But 7.75 inches. Blade length, in areas you could call it 3.5. Realistically, it's probably 3.45. Cutting edge is absolutely 3.35 inches. Let's do some size comparisons. Any custom skills you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and others. Up against the 80-10 and the 80-20.5. Definitely closer in size to the 80-20.5, but it has quite a bit more cutting edge. In fact, cutting edge is comparable to what's on the 80-10, and that's because of how they chose to set this knife up. Let's go ahead and put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. It definitely does clear cutting edge of both of these knives while being, I guess, closer to the overall size of the Para 3, like maybe like half an inch off. And then finally, let's put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. How's the action on this knife? I am a huge fan of how this knife operates. You can front flip it and it works just fine. Very nice on the disengagement. What comes down and contacts your finger is unsharpened edge because of that huge forward choil there. Very smooth, very good detent, and surprisingly, without these being textured, right? I really thought these thumb studs are not textured, they're not going to be comfortable. Actually, they are. They're so big. It's pretty easy to get underneath there and actuate them. I mean, you can slide off of them, but for the most part, it's pretty good. I still think it would have been better to add a little bit of texturing right where they're sort of chamfered at the edges, but it's good enough. I really don't have a problem with the way that they've done this, and I find that the knife is very, very easy to manipulate. Very, very good, very snappy, very satisfying. Let's do carry profile. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. By the way, it runs on bearings, but you probably knew that. Thickness, it's about the same as the Para 3, not much different there. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. You can see here, it's not going to carry a whole lot different. I mean, it's a little longer than the Para 3, a little bit different shape. Definitely shorter than the PM2, nowhere near as tall as either of them, where the hump is. Really, in and out of the pocket, this thing was very similar to a lot of other knives that I carry. I didn't have much of an issue with it, and I didn't notice it any more or less than the other knives that I like to carry. I think it might be on the larger side for some people, but I wouldn't classify this as a large pocket knife. Let's go ahead and do weight. This poor scale. You know, guys, there's gonna come a day where I got to replace this. I've dropped it a million times. There's parts falling off of it. This button is just like coming out now. It doesn't necessarily weigh accurately every single time. The weight roughly is, oh, we're in pounds. That's why we can't do that. We have to change to ounces. It also starts in various, I mean, it doesn't matter if I change the batteries on it. 4.06 ounces. Let's just make sure we're still accurate. This guy should come in at 2.75 or close to. It's close, right? But we're starting to, yeah, it's getting there, but it's a little off here or there, right? So we're maybe coming up to a point where we got to replace this scale. About 4 ounces is what I'm coming in at. Not bad. It's more pieces falling off of it. There is weight reduction on the inside, you can see in there. So we have titanium and we have M390. Their website claims that they are hardening their M390 from 60 to 62. I think that's great if they're actually hitting it. I don't have the ability to properly measure or test this, you need special equipment, not just the little home, kind of, oh yeah, it's kind of hard. There are people in this community who have the ability to accurately test hardness. And, if you're familiar with like transparent knives and Love Them knives, they do this stuff, right? So I'd be really interested to see, if these things are coming in, poking it in multiple places, if it's actually coming in that hard. Cutting things with it, I didn't know that the edge became fatigued after some light cardboard cutting, so I have to assume that there's at least a reasonable heat treat on it, but if Remette is actually hitting it from 60 to 62, I think that's wonderful. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be able to do that, so thank you, Remette, if that's where you're actually hitting it. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use in this channel or the pinned comment. Right off the bat, that's a T7. I like that there's barely any hardware. We probably have some pegs, right, holding in the backspacer here, but they have really minimized the amount of hardware on this knife. We have a T6 screw here and a T6 screw for the pocket clip. Now this pocket clip is nested and it's also curved with the body, which means no, you cannot flip it over to the other side. You probably could screw it in there, but it'd be angling the wrong way and it would be flopping around right here because there's nothing to keep it captive. So safe to say this is a right hand only knife. Wish that wasn't the case, but that is the case. Wish it wasn't T6 screws, but you can't always get what you want. We forgot to test the pivot. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm almost certain it's going to be a T8. This is a T8. You just take my word for it. I don't want to spend time zooming in. Yeah, pivot is a T8. Minimal hardware, very classic, simple sandwich construction for a titanium frame lock. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. Let's measure the blade stock thickness here, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes. All right. 125, 130? No. Oh, really? That's thin. Let's make sure we're getting it on the flat. 115 thousandths on the thinner side. Okay, moving on here. This is a good looking profile. Not the first time this profile's been done, but we've reached a point in the knife world where it's very difficult to come up with an aesthetic that is truly unique and at the same time practical, right? Unique and interesting designy aesthetics exist, but oftentimes they trade comfort and utility, right? Not always, but sometimes. This is a design that is honestly quite a bit different than anything else that Remette has in their lineup, right? It's also a profile that works. The way that Remette has done this is really nice. They've added these little sort of titanium inlays to the thumb studs, which look really good. And it offers a nice matchup with the pivot collars, the blue pivot collars. There's also a version of this that is entire lightning ano, right? So it's very high polished lightning ano. If you like the colorful stuff, but you don't want to pay for real Timascus, which is still titanium, it's just layers of multi-composition titanium, right? But the lightning ano provides that a similar aesthetic, very colorful, right? It's ano at the end of the day, so over time you continue to use it, it's going to wear off. But it's really cool, and that's an option, and I think it's maybe $5 more, something like that, maybe $8 more. The plain one looks really good. They've done like a blasted frame, and then the blade is actually, let me show you. It's actually a hand rub satin finish up here. And then we have like a very light, I think maybe they call that their pearlescent finish. It's just like a very light media blasting or a glass blasting or something like that. So we have hand rub satin finish flats, and then we have this glass blasted, maybe they don't call it pearlescent. I can't remember what they call it. It's not really pearlescent, right? But they have a name like that for one of their finishes, and it's not actual pearlescence, but it ends up being a media blasting finish that has more reflectivity to it than a simple bead blasting, which I hate anyway. I don't like how it looks, and it also causes like micro pitting, so it collects moisture more easily. In any case, the finish looks really good. This is a nice way to do a more minimal aesthetic while still having some personality. Let's focus in on comfort, because wow, is this knife comfortable. Pocket clip does not extend past the 50% line and is milled and flat and knocked down, meaning that this is about as good as it gets for comfort. This zone in here is pretty perfect for 2 fingers, allowing you to lock in right behind that sharpened portion of the edge, which does clear the thumb studs, or the thumb studs clear the cutting path, which is great. The blade profile is a classic drop point blade, so this is going to be just fine for regular day-to-day EDC stuff with a huge emphasis on comfort and ease of manipulation. If you don't like front flippers, which I can already hear the moans and the groans, you can literally just ignore that it's there because it's not in the way of anything. I'm glad that they just carved out a little section right here just to add a nice little touch. It's kind of cool to look at, right? If you do want to front flip this thing, it is ridiculously easy to do. Manipulating it either with the forward thumb flick or the reverse flick is also very, very easy, as we covered earlier. Behind the edge, it's about medium, right? It's not thick. It's also not razor thin, but it will definitely slice. It'll definitely cut. And you get to utilize the entire sharpened edge, making, regular tasks or breaking down cardboard, getting into packaging, not only easy, but fun and comfortable, right? The whole knife is just extremely comfortable. The edges are super well knocked down. The whole thing has this feeling like it's actually contoured, but it's not. And it's because of how rounded off these edges are. I mean, it really feels radiused in here. This is so comfortable, and it's nice to look at too. I mean, that's nice to look at. There's no branding. What you're seeing here is the lanyard hole, you're seeing a screw, the pivot, and you're seeing thumb studs, but they're all very not loud. They're not screaming at you with like designiness. They're just simple, but it goes along with the knife. The lines flow really nicely, right? Right here, this chamfer line where it starts kind of matches with that line right there that creates the swedge up on top of the blade. And back here where the flat ends and turns into the cutting bevel, lines up perfectly with this sort of peak at the frame right there. You can kind of see that's all done on purpose, and it looks really nice. Little gear pattern back here, little lanyard hole for people who like lanyards. Pocket clip is really simple. They put their name on the pocket clip, which is fine. Doesn't look bad. I'm glad that they put it there and not on the blade, but I mean, honestly, I would like if it wasn't there at all, and maybe, it's like, where do you want us to put it? Like, we got to put it somewhere. I guess make it smaller. That'd be cool. Or you could do the inside of the frame, just like on the lip back here. Or I guess really, really tiny on the back spacer. Either way, it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. Retention on the clip is good. There's a ramp underneath the clip, so in and out of the pocket. Very smooth experience. The knife is going to carry semi-deep, about right here. Not much sticking up out of your pocket, so that's good. Steel lock bar insert that does double as the over travel stop, so that's great. We have a stop pin located in its traditional spot with just a little tiny bit of shouldering right there. No blade play up, down, left, or right. No lock stick. No double clutch. No pivot lash. Very smooth. Great detent. And generally speaking, Remette knows how to do a decent frame lock, so the geometry is good enough to where some light spine taps, light spine pressure is not going to disengage it. This is one of my favorite designs from Remette. I think it looks really good, and I'm a big fan of comfort. I love crazy designy stuff, and I think that's really cool, and I appreciate it for a different reason. But really, when it comes down to it, the knives that I carry, the knives that I continue to carry day to day, that make it back into my rotation, they're knives that are comfortable. Knives that are utilitarian and, that have like some of this sort of fancy schmat. Like, I like the nice materials and things like that, but it's kind of the reason that, not saying that this is like a Spyderco, but for me, the aha moment with Spyderco, and it's the same with a lot of other people, is they look so weird. And, I think it's fair to say that Spyderco knives in general are kind of ugly, right? But they emphasize ergonomic comfort and utility. So it's not until you actually carry and use them that you realize why they are shaped like that and why a lot of them look like that, right? Now, this looks a lot better, in my opinion. It's very subjective, right? Looks a lot better than a Spyderco, but it has that comfort. It's not the same type of comfort, but it has that, I can see why it's shaped like this or why it looks like that. And I enjoy that a lot. This is a knife that, if this was my only knife, I would be very happy with it. It's not, necessarily built to do literally anything, but common knife tasks will be completed with ease and with the utmost comfort. It's very, very good in that sense. It's designed very well. I think if you decide to pick this up, you'll like it. The premium version of this knife, which is what you're looking at, starts at about $190, which I think is more than fair, especially considering what it's made out of and considering Remette is listing this at $60 to $62, which is a proper heat treatment, in my opinion, for M390. So if that's true, that's excellent. The value is absolutely there. And again, if you're like, that's great, I'm not paying $200 for a knife, that's fine. They have a budget version in 14C28N and G10 for $57, which I also think is very fair. So yes, recommendable knife, definitely something that you guys should check out. I think this is a knife that many people, anybody who's got the budget for it, many people will enjoy it. So highly recommendable knife. One of my favorites, if not, might be my very favorite that I've ever handled from Remette. please. Oh, and it'll be linked down in the description. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.